What is up, everybody? I am live Thursday, May 8th, 2025. And we are just going to kind of get into it, wait for this market to open. Got some decent information, some headline news kind of popping off a little bit with the tariff deal, seemingly with England, the UK, and then the pullback of the chip information, like regulation stuff. So that's what I'm watching. Got about 3 minutes till open. Just wanted to start the stream just a touch early. We don't really have an entry for that open. We're going to be away from our levels, right? Overnight high, VWAP, previous day high is there. That previous day high, late day spike on that on the chip announcement. See if it actually mentions it on the NVIDIA chart. However, I mean, NVIDIA may lose up to $10 billion in revenue from U.S. export restrictions on its H20 chips intended for China. And we don't have any other stuff for that. Circuit of Appeals upheld Microsoft's $69 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard. So they will get Activision, likely. Microsoft pushing up here pre-market a little bit, but NVIDIA is the gapper, right? There's that gap play on NVIDIA, closed down here, gapping up all over these levels, likely because of that that chip deal getting repealed. So we'll see what happens there, and we'll go back to our actual trading charts. All right. I'm going to keep streaming here and there. It's not going to be as consistent of a schedule as it was, depending on my work schedule and all that, starting on next week. So tomorrow I'm probably gonna try and get on the stream, but the rest of the week, like starting Monday, I'm gonna have to try and adjust and see what I'm gonna do with sleep and whatnot. So we will talk about it there when the time comes. Everything that I do, I post on X, so you will be able to get that. 3 seconds till open here. Let's see. We're going to be opening basically right on VWAP on both the S&Ps and the NQ. We're going to watch NVIDIA pull back a bunch right off the jump. Microsoft a little bit catching a bid, so a little bit of a divergence there between the two. Microsoft going straight up and NVIDIA going straight down. Pakistan tensions slowed for a trade pact. All right. You got some support at VWAP there. Once again, today is going to be a little volatile. Not going to be like super aggressive early unless we get something, overnight highs. We'll run into this zone again here for the S&Ps, which is a sell area from prior. We butt our head up against their pre-market. Could we maybe continue on? That's the question, especially with the tariff announcement. The official announcement is supposed to be around 10, so that's going to be a key time frame. So watching that level there, also our key structure here in the NQ 189. But I'm not really going to be playing that 189 level. I really want to be up into that 20,262 for that pre-market high. Microsoft pushed straight through the overhead levels, right through resistance. I'm going to see if it holds that and just continues on, which could push us up into the overnight highs. NVIDIA is catching a support level, which is the high from yesterday. So it didn't really close the gap fully, but there is still some downside for that. We can push into there, maybe the overnight high, the aftermarket hours, like 116.63 for NVIDIA. If we get to our previous day high on both of these, that is a chance to attempt our bounce play idea here, the area for a long, right? Interest here. High of yesterday, breakthrough, retest, run. Going to get below VWAP. We do have anchored VWAP from the week down here at 959 currently. Still a little low. If it could pull up into that 44, it could act as support. So we're going to watch both the anchored VWAPs for the week as a support area. Excuse me. The tariff announcement is going to be important as well. Microsoft's still pushing higher. I would be interested down there. I think if it gets to 55, it's got that VWAP's got to catch up. It might not catch that VWAP, but it would be a nice confluence, a bit of help there. Previous day high, basically low there at 9 o'clock. So let's see if we get a setup here. I'm going to be watching NVIDIA and Microsoft. I may go Google and Apple. Google is melting as well. On what? Apple Safari browser shift towards AI search. AAPL. Apple selling also into that 197 area. It could bounce from here as well, so I would be happy with that. NVIDIA trying to catch a little bit of a bounce. Microsoft pulling back to the support level, the resistance level that was 439.50. Our opening range is up here. I don't always throw it out there because I'm not necessarily, it depends on the day. Certain days I would like to know that opening range is there. I don't see a leader laggard play going on, right? The divergence from yesterday that we saw that really helped our timing with that short idea at VWAP. And then also when I took the long from the overnight low, right? So understanding the significance of right now we've broken that low, did not break that low in the S&P is still, that would be a relative strength thing, right? Didn't break the low, did break the low, trying to come back to VWAP, also trying to can it get back above? Will that lead to this come above, or will that become a continuation test and run? I have a hard time buying the highs of the levels, right? So the mean reversion strategy would call for more of an overnight low bounce. I think realistically we could bounce from here because it was a support level. It would be worth taking a shot on if it does set us up in a way that could make sense, but right now it's holding that VWAP area. And then if it gets really heavy right now, there's a good chance that it just kind of goes straight down because of tariff news, some data. The jobless claims came out at 228,000 as opposed to 230, so it was less than forecast. U.S. Russia mole restoring Russian gas flows to Europe. No real significant news currently. The earnings for after hours is Affirm, the Trade Desk, DraftKings. Nothing really, Mara. Nothing super important. Wholesale inventories we have at 10, which will be 9 Central. I love when my phone just does random stuff. I think I'm streaming on Twitch also, so if you're on Twitch, welcome. I just haven't noticed if I don't know where I'm at. How do you even know if there's people? There is one. All right. Very cool. This is action that I don't want to be involved in, right? I mentioned it yesterday how if we are lingering around that VWAP area, we're hanging out, it's middle of the zones, there was some interest here. Maybe the market's waiting for more news, right? Or whatever. There's just very early in the session, I'm not trying to do much around that VWAP unless it's in conjunction with some of my other levels. However, right now we're not, right? Yes, it's good. It's holding for that continuation for the shorts for whoever's playing that. My levels, my A plus is really going to be down here at overnight lows. Previous day lows, if we get there, that's, I don't know if I'm willing to buy that up, but I wouldn't hate it. My NVIDIA is selling. Microsoft is, giving back that high, although it's trying to hold that 439 level. NVIDIA giving up that 117.50-ish. Maybe we'll get a bounce from there. That was previous day highs as well. So previous day highs at 117.67. So it's trying to give up that previous day high, trying to rotate back down into a more realistic price. They did congest overnight, post market after hours, between 116.60, maybe 117. It got up to down to about 116 even. So about $1 range for NVIDIA on the after hours. So this gap up and then now rotating back down into that area where there could be some interest in buyers between 116 and 117. So that, I was talking about that here, since I'm not executing right now on my charts. You see NVIDIA up here, that was that gap. We had that large gap. And then this was the congestion after hours last night, right? It's between 117 and 116, where price wanted to be, and then obviously gapped up from there. This pump was on, I believe, the announcement that there was going to be a repeal of some of the chip restrictions. So NVIDIA benefits from that. However, that's a pretty decent gap, over structure. You may get a gap retest and then continuation for that type of news. We haven't been at these highs for quite some time now. NVIDIA has been looking for some more reasons to get back up into the high side, and it just kind of gave that up right there on that gap. If we do pull back this area here into that 115 area zone is going to be it. What's up, man? Max, I just dropped Enzo off. Now there's no picking him up until after school, dude. Mommy's talking to you, buddy.
No, I said, which hour are you going to pick up Enzo?
3:00.
You
That's when school's over. Got Microsoft as well, selling from that initial pump, and then trying to give back some there, back into yesterday's sort of tight range. I would like to see Microsoft hold over 435 for any sort of pushback to the upside. So if we do start to get selling in our markets to push us into our areas of interest for buying, then I would like to see Microsoft holding that 435.17 or even higher, right? I would prefer it to hold like 436 and a quarter. So there's that. Let's see what Apple's doing. Apple is selling off to the bottom of this range here. There was a gap as well in Apple. Yesterday tried to hold that area and then sold off completely. Came into it, tried to reject it. Now we gapped above it. See, this is a very interesting area, very high demand. There could be some pump from it, but it's all due to the delay in AI features for the iPhone 16 and 16 Plus. So that led to a drop. And we'll go back to Microsoft. That's what I like to keep this chart on to really give me a good idea on what's going to happen here. Since the market cap in Microsoft is I think currently number one weighted in the NQ. So that's what I watch. I'm going to watch for news. As always, don't do dumb shit. This is my daily reminder. Day Trading Coffee Co. mug of the day. This is like a continuation of the lower volatility. This potentially could last until that 10 o'clock announcement that they said there. I mean, it's not like he didn't already announce that it was going to be the UK. Yesterday he teased it, and today I saw that he mentioned it, that it was the UK. So there's not really a surprise. Unless there's, it says they're going to keep 10% on, so there's got to be other valuable reasons for this to be a deal. Where do we got Coinbase and stuff? No, thank you for the water. Wait, my assistant here. I'll take coffee in a little bit. It's okay for now. This is not much movement. You got that big push up on that the overnight hours, right? The overnight low. I did catch the gap fill on one of my XFAs. Did okay on it, right? I bought in here as a hold of VWAP, ran it to there, and then I took it off, and then clearly I could have continued to hold that for the whole night. Would have been nice, but that's not the kind of... I don't like trading the overnight markets. I just saw this as an opportunity to fill that gap due to just kind of everything that was talked about in the headline space, right? If I saw a gap down after this big move up, there's a chance that gap gets filled. Higher probability for me holding VWAP. A good reason to execute and take that long there. I took it twice. I stopped myself for even on the first entry, waited for that, and then took that entire move there. So that was good, but not on this TFT. We could use a flushicito. I'm going to be cautious to take a buy through the previous day high unless I see some really good reasons behind it on the MES and the other Mag 7 names like Microsoft and NVIDIA. I really want to see them. The good thing about price holding up here, it is dragging that weekly anchored VWAP up. So the more we kind of congest and move around and hang around here, the higher this anchored VWAP is going to start to curl up. If I can get it up to that tariff announcement high, that'd be fantastic. That 20,044 level. Currently, it's below 20,000. If I can get this up over 20,000 before we get down into this zone, that would be a really helpful support. So I may want to just wait for that as far as the strategy is concerned. I mean, waiting for that one extra added layer of confluence in a market like this could be really helpful for timing and getting not trapped into things. It looks like it's going to curl up a bit. And, we're not really flushing. We're just kind of sitting here. Yes, we're coming down, basing, breaking, basing, could break again and continue. So if you are playing momentum, it's not a terrible idea to be short below VWAP and then trying to catch a momentum play down to that previous day high and then probably below. I am not a momentum trader, so I don't execute on that kind of move, but it is a valid entry idea. Alrighty. Being very just chill today. Nothing for me. There's that momentum breakdown, which is good, useful. Right? I talked about you have that base, hold, breakdown, base out, retest, hold, continue. So you have your momentum helping you if you are short. Previous day high here. It's a good area of interest to start looking at. That's where I'm going to start looking at potentially taking that mean reversion bounce, kind of keeping this range bound. However, I don't trust it, like I said. So I'm going to look for a little bit more confidence because NVIDIA is selling, Microsoft's selling. If I get Microsoft down to 435 and it's going to try and bounce from there, then I will look to take the long here because if Microsoft bounces and NVIDIA bounces from 117, which is at 116.66. So here you can see the heaviness in NVIDIA, the heaviness in Microsoft. Both of those are helpful for me to get this down to where I want it to go. And then if I can see a turn at the area of interest right there, bounce, 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 bounce. If I can get a bounce from here, that will help my trade idea come the time that I'm in it. So, but realistically, you got NVIDIA 2 right at a support area. And this was I was talking about, that once you got that gap and push up from that chip news, that area, that zone where it could possibly chop around or want some interest, buyers are here, right? That's where you got that gap up from. So this is an interesting area for a bounce for NVIDIA. I just need a flush of the Microsoft. I would love to see it a little lower, maybe get below that pre-market low to get buyers in. And then we're here. S&P is heavy through previous day low, right? We were talking about this tariff announcement high 44. We want this anchored VWAP higher. Same with this, the S&Ps. Yeah, maybe 56.62 down into here. This is heavy, right? This is not something I want to get in front of right away. That's why I never limit in onto these ideas, because this is a failed momentum breakdown strategy, right? So if there is going to be momentum, that play does work sometimes, right? The momentum plays do work at times. So that's where I'm just playing the opportunity to fail those momentum plays, right? So if I can get a hard momentum move and it doesn't go right away, then there's a good opportunity for me to catch a bounce. If it goes now, it goes now. It never really got to my level. It never gave me the setup that I need to see as far as a failed breakout is concerned. The only confluence that I have currently is that NVIDIA is trying to bounce from that structure level. Microsoft is curling from the low, the pre-market low that it had right before the open. And, you know, S&P did get below the previous day high and is now showing relative strength. But they're just kind of both doing the same thing. Just NVIDIA never, the NQ never got below the previous day high. If you think of this in terms of just simplicity, right? This is the highest that price could possibly get to yesterday before it decided to get sold, right? And that's on good tariff news. On chip news, right? So it gets a pump, it rallies. It's after FOMC. There should be more momentum. It could continue, but it doesn't. It turns around there for some reason. It turns around there. There's a good amount of congestion here, right? So the possibility of this continuing, and then it failed. It decided that was it. You know, that's the area where I don't want to buy anymore. Let's sell it off and come back into the range. Prices are more appealing down here. So what today looks like is, do we think that prices need to be over that level, or do we think that prices should be back in that range, right? Do we think that it's more appealing to be in this range and more, just, is it a better area for buying or a better area for selling, right? This is where price wants to be. It's all about price discovery. And, with value areas and stuff like that, a lot of people use value areas. They use points of control. They use all that stuff. I think Trump talks at 9 a.m. Central Time. So this is going to be the hands off in a second. Yeah. I'm going to run the stream. I wonder if there's a way I can get a mini player out there. The biggest thing that you can do if you do not have a news feed, right? I listen to this all day. I'm going to post it in the chat as well. The Financial Juice. I just listen to the free one. It's good for you. It helps you. They have real-time releases on just what's going on data-wise. Any sort of real-time, actually happening now, live news. Why markets move, when they move. They give you... if there's like a big pop or a news announcement, they'll give you the charts, show you exactly when that announcement happened and what happened to the chart afterwards. So there's a lot of really good benefits to the free version. You could pay for it, but I don't know if I see the benefit for paying for it currently. I'm probably going to eventually grab a paid version of it just because I appreciate it, support them, and see what kind of benefit there is to having it. 5 minutes or so now until Trump's announcement on the tariffs between the trade deal between us and the UK. So that'll be something that's good news, I guess you would call it. He also did mention 2 days ago about there's going to be some really great news that's earth-shattering. I don't know what kind of earth-shattering news it was. He said it wasn't tariff-related, it wasn't trade-related, so I don't know what it could possibly be. Somebody hinted at it being some sort of Medicaid pricing. I don't think that's earth-shattering. So we will see what he has to say. Headline-driven markets, so always be prepared for the headlines to get you going in this world. I do want to raid this low. I want to get through it, flush it, but Microsoft's catching a bounce. NVIDIA's catching a bounce. We never made it here, so what participants currently are saying is we don't really want to get within yesterday's range, because if we do, then potentially we go and sell lower and we try to rotate back down into lows. I don't know where the point of control is. I don't have it pulled up. I would imagine somewhere here and like the 9, just based on price action, the congestion here, the congestion there. If I had to take a wild guess at the point of control, it'd be 19,845, somewhere in that range, maybe a little bit lower, anywhere from 800 to 845. That could be a good area for price to want to get to should it fail this previous day high, should it fail the overnight low, should Trump say something interesting. I could probably find the point of control. Let's see, since I'm not doing anything currently. Oh, that's not it. Indicators, volume profile, fixed range. That's going to be from 830 to 1500. There we go. And look at that. The point of control was at that level right there. 44. That was a pretty damn good guess just by eyeballing it, huh? I think I can do this job. I think I can pull it off. All right. So, did he start talking yet? Nope. No announcement yet. I mean, there's 3 minutes till then. If you're playing these momentum plays, I'd just be cautious at this moment in time, just because of this announcement. It doesn't really matter what it says, if it's good or bad for markets. It doesn't matter. It's just whatever the markets say it is, right? So if there is news, if there is reason for algos to start moving markets around, then it's going to do it. So I would probably be hands off for a little bit.
Pakistan government says Prime Minister receives telephone call from US Secretary of State Rubio.
IBIT still no break of 100K. Can't get above the volume weighted average price. I want to be long Bitcoin today, but there's nothing
Let's see.
that's setting up, so I can't force the action.
There's a push downside. I like that move personally for trapping shorts, right? If I get that below here, that heavy hard candle, that's something that shows a trap, right? It wants people to get short. It wants them to be aggressive. It wants them to think that this is behaviors, right? This is what, if you're thinking of the market in behaviors, I think you need to start looking at this as how is it going to trap you? How would you trap yourself, right? What would make you do something a little bit offsides or a little bit impulsive, right? If you see a hard candle, a nice smack down, right? You see, I'm going to miss out. I'm going to get to, I need to get short here. I need to do this because I'm going to miss this move. That FOMO that a lot of people feel is because they see a behavior in a candle and they think, oh, well, I'm going to miss this move now because it's doing X, Y, and Z. It's a forceful candle. It's moving in a direction that I want to go in. I don't want to be offsides in my risk to reward. I mean, all that is what some of these algos are taking into account, right? So I would be mindful of watching the behavior. I like to watch the level twos and see the time and sales and see the speed of the market as it speeds up. I mentioned it yesterday that it really helped my timing on my long, because I said, okay, price is now speeding up. Like right now it's speeding up, but it's 9 o'clock, right? So that press conference should be starting any minute now. And so now the algos are starting to speed up. They're starting to tick in. Somebody turned them on at 9. Now we're waiting to see what words trigger this algo to do whatever it wants to do, right? It wants to be hard, snappy moves. It wants to be thin on the liquidity. You're gonna start to see the level 2 just dissipate. You're gonna see there's not gonna be tons of orders depending on what happens, but right now it's still a normal, clean level 2 orders on both sides. This dome is an NQ is a little bit easier to see that, right? You're not seeing any really heavy order size, 15s. 23 down here below 93. I mean, really nothing huge on the order books, right? Because of this announcement that's about to happen. Wholesale orders lower than expected. Inventories lower than anticipated as well. So those two that came out just now, zero point 0.4 on the wholesale inventories as opposed to 0.5, and then the other didn't. I don't see it. It's not on here. It's just on the financial juice. The wholesale sales was at 0.6 and the forecast was at 0.9. So I would imagine that's tariff related. Starting to push up. This is something that I wanted to see. Right, the NQ. Let me make sure I'm on the right screen because I have to click down on my OBS and back up. You can see that the ES did get below. I want to make sure the VWAP is good. Did get below previous day high, and then it failed it. We are going to come into that VWAP here, reject, maybe come back down in, and the NQ never made it down through that previous day high. I would like it, that aggressive selling candle that I talked about right there is a good reason to trap a short, right? I wanted to see it a little bit deeper. The S&P did it right into that previous day high, maybe trying to get people off sides and trying to get them selling through, trying to front run, and now they're rotating back higher. That's some algo driven type move there, right? Push price down hard and fast, get people aggressive into their sells, and then rotate you back out, and then stop you out right above that candle, and then see what happens there. It is a game, right? This is you versus everybody else. So these algos are playing your behavior against you, and I think that there's a good understanding of what's going on if you can just watch it and pay attention. You just have to pay attention all the time. Start to build. People say, "Oh, you shouldn't focus on one instrument or whatever." If you're an equities trader, if you have a really good relationship with a certain stock, then yeah, there are some stocks that move every day, a decent amount that you can capitalize on. You might be setting yourself up to not make as much since you're not taking that advantage of all 2,000 or whatever companies that you can trade. But when you're trading futures, you're trading certain instruments that you have to build a relationship with. It is, I think personally, it's good to stick with one or maybe a couple, unless you're trading purely chart patterns. I'm trading behaviors around levels. So if you don't know how NQ moves in comparison to the S&Ps, and if you don't know how oil moves and certain times of day, or right, anything that you're trading. There was a corn guy on yesterday. He's trading purely the dome, and he's just got depth of market level 2 data, and he's trading all off of bid and ask information. So if you can just develop a really good relationship with what you trade and understand when you should be trading and when you shouldn't, futures really give you opportunities every single day. There's really not, unless there's days like yesterday where I had to wait a really long time to even find my setup, but I still got one because we eventually rated one of my levels. I simplified my strategy to be able to possibly have an opportunity every single day. And so that's what I'm here for on this. I just think that you need to build a relationship with the things that you're trading. He still hasn't started talking. So let me see if I can pull this up over here. Open in YouTube. Open in YouTube. I want to pull it up. I'm going to try and pull it up over on our stream. It won't let me bring it over here. Let's do that. Let's do this. Get rid of the chat. Let's do theater mode. There we go. And we're going to see how it looks on the stream to make sure we know when it's happening. I don't want to take any orders if I mess up my clicks. Hold on.
The number one thing that I want right now is a way back into Apple that doesn't have me
So it'll be up in here.
point is so distinctly different from almost every other tech name that at least I'm watching.
Let me get a full screen on that. What's that? I want to get rid of that. F11. Nope. Just gonna go regular full screen. All right, that's fine. Let's do that. Trying to have this here and see the price chart so we know when Trump's major tariff announcement comes out. Throw closed captions on so we can read it if you want to read it and see what's going on. So we have that up in the top right corner so you can see Trump and his information. There we go. So I'm going to try and do more stuff like this to try and keep everybody informed in what they're, what's going on in the news and whatever, it is obviously US-UK trade pact information, but it hasn't been announced, by him. It hasn't come out of his mouth. So when that happens, I would expect that this to have some algo movement. If I click off of it on accident, I'm sorry. It's just kind of how it goes with having windows open and stuff like that. I can figure out a way to get it on top. And honestly, I probably could just set up a display overlay for the feed, but I'm not doing that right now. So that's really heavy right there. That is something that I would say if that fails, then we can probably rotate up. But we never got there in the NQ yet, right? We haven't been in that deep of a pull. Once that stream starts, I'll pull it back up. Because if I get an opportunity here to get a quick little base hit, I'm gonna take it. But I need to flush this. S&Ps is flushing and kind of playing the idea that I want. I could play this on the S&Ps since the NQ is showing relative strength. I'm not going to. It's still there, okay. Yeah, I'm not going to play the AS. I could play my strategy on both, but like I said, I'm developing the opportunity, the relationship with the NQ. I have my risk settings. Everything is really kind of tailored towards that NQ. So starting to move into something different is probably a bad idea currently, just for me. It doesn't work for everybody. Let's see if we can get this to break through here. If it does break through here, I would anticipate it to be like a pretty heavy break. The problem now lies in this video right here. If Trump comes on and says something that's totally not what they expected to happen, right? The algos are going to just snap this thing around like wild. So for me to want to get involved right now, it's kind of it's iffy. It's a strategy. It's a setup. It's a long idea here. Could I get involved now and be okay? Absolutely. If I just took my normal strategy, right? We are approaching that anchored VWAP for the week on the S&Ps, not quite there in the NQs, so maybe wait for that to play out. I may take it on just the Top Step account and not on my TFT, but it's still not flushing it, so it's not an active setup anyway. Because this could run right up into that previous day high and then sell off some more. Then possibly that's when you can get this to play out. As I mentioned, I wanted to see that anchored VWAP for the week to kind of start curling up and then acting as support up in that 20,000, higher than that. This 44 level is that tariff announcement high. So we are at tariff announcement high right exactly when he's about to announce the first real deal from this tariff announcement, right? So is that coincidence? Maybe not. We're right at the price level that we priced in selling from these announcements. We got back over it on rumors, and now we're back at that area come the first set of announcements. So is it buy the rumor or sell the news, buy the rumor, sell the news again? Possibly. So that's another reason why this is kind of an area that's super interesting for me. There might be a lot of interest here as far as people being, wanting to sell through it on news. Still no announcement there. S&P's is very heavy, and you're not seeing that. This is more of a break, continuation break, so this is not going to be a failed breakout. So I'm not going to execute along through here unless I start to see the S&P's really breaking back above this candle here, which may make me late on this, but I'd rather not get wicked in on a stop entry and then it runs down on me. So NVIDIA needs to get a little lower, and Microsoft also needs to get down some more for me to be okay with taking a long from there. The next, like I said, 44 was that tariff high point. There you go. The tariff announcement high is at 20,044 quarters. I was talking about this anchored VWAP being the area where I want to see a bounce. Would prefer it. S&P's really respects these levels a lot. So if we can get this weekly anchored VWAP to start acting as support on the S&P's, 56.53 is here. So that would be the support area. And 20,000 on the NQ is a pretty important level. So I'm just going to throw it there. Just 20,000 is just a nice round number to have up. Like I said, could this be the opportunity here? It could. We're getting so close to that anchored VWAP that I think we still have more momentum to the downside. NVIDIA is running right into that lower band of its VWAP, so that one standard deviation could still continue down from there. Microsoft's still holding the lows of the day, so at 436.80, if it bounces from here, then you may get that continuation, but I think that there's still one more leg down to that 435.17 level. So I would imagine we get a break retest of this, then rotate down one more time, trap people into real shorts, but this could be a momentum type day. So I'm not really trusting that as a as a long opportunity just yet, right? I'm waiting for that timing, that confluence. That's what I talked about the other day, yesterday and the day before. We just popped our head right back above that tariff announcement high. And then we're going to see, is it going to retest this and then rotate back? I would like to see S&P starting to get higher up. My issue is the NVIDIA area of where it's at. Microsoft as well. Maybe it's at a bounce point, but it really looks like it's more of a sell side pressure. So I'm not convinced. This is, like I said, I have a hard time with the high of day long. I think that's an area where it's going to either, I know it's good because it'll either accept into yesterday's range, and I talked about the point of control being 45, right? 19,845. I just eyeballed it, and then I threw that on there just to be sure. But that is an area where a point of control rotation would make a lot of sense if we accept into this range, right? So for me, my strategy isn't playing a continuation on this. However, if you are, right, this was a good entry when I talked about that breakdown here and then the retest short to get to previous day high. Now you're able to be ahead of everything, right? Your entry is good. You were able to be short off a key level. You're able to be ahead of participants deciding whether or not they want to be into yesterday's range, back into the point of control from yesterday, or do they want to create their new session highs and lows and start to continue this to the upside? right? But then you'd have so much protection here where you're able to make that decision. I'm not going to execute until Trump comes on. I don't think it's good to not to you have to wait. Is there a reason why they haven't spoke yet? Hard to just execute when you're waiting for this guy to come on the screen. I bet it's 10:30. I'll check back in on that stream in a minute. All right, so now that we've came back, retested that level, if we come back into here and then make a higher low, if the Daddy Trump doesn't come back in and start talking, then I may look to go long through this, but just this one initial flush and then come back up, I'm not quite ready for it, especially because at any second right now he could say hello and then this market could just go and then whip me out. I'm very tight on my risk currently with the drawdowns that I have. You know, my XFAs are doing all right. I got a few days of payout qualifying days, you know, just about built the buffer up there. My TFD, I'm just building that buffer right now, so I don't want to do anything overly aggressive, especially in the early stages, right? If I have, you know, a much bigger account size, I may take a shot at this with a couple micros just to see what happens, you know, because it is part of my strategy. I don't like that we're still below this previous day high in the S&Ps, which is not helping the idea, right? This could fail and then rotate. Now, if you get a push above this previous day high and a hold, then maybe you got the ability to get up over that. But NVIDIA is selling some, Microsoft pulling back some as well. I think we're kind of in a holding pattern until Trump talks, until this announcement settles in. You don't have to execute right away every day. You know, there's some days that I'm in and out in a minute, 5 minutes. And there's some days I wait all day. And there's some days that you don't get anything. It's just kind of how it is. Oh, trying to throw that around. All right, so there we go. Still waiting for that to start, which gives me pause. I think a lot of this is just wait and see. Microsoft wanting that wedge break to the high side. If that does happen, if Microsoft shows me any sort of strength, then I may just get in and then risk 2 previous day high. But I would need to see Microsoft start to lead us, because yesterday Microsoft led us to the downside, but nothing broke immediately. So if I could see Microsoft give us that that leading indication that we're going to start to squeeze up again, then I may look, like I said, to hammer into that. Because Microsoft, I'm 99% sure, took over that market cap on the highest weighted in the index currently. So I know streams like this are not quite exciting. You're not getting execution after execution, and that's not what I want to be. I want to be more of a market assassin. I want to be able to be here to be useful to people. I want to be able to be helpful as far as bringing about awareness to what's going on in the market at the time. I want to show discipline. I want to keep myself accountable, and I want to just be able to be here every day and give you, the thoughts behind what I'm seeing, why market behaves the way it does in certain times of day, certain periods. This is unfortunate that it's happening. I just wasn't convinced, and there we go. You can see speeding up. Prices speeding up is an area right here. It's either going to squeeze or it's going to melt off from there because of the speed of that price. The algo is kicked on. That's not people doing that. That speed, that aggression isn't people. That's algos, right? You can't do that. You can't turn on the machine. And if I had to guess, the press conference is probably about to start. Or it just wanted to be a trap. Okay, so we're getting details from the announcement. U.S. is going to cut tariffs on UK cars. That's what I just heard on the Financial Juice.
So some further detail from the article that US will slash tariffs on Range Rovers and other UK made vehicles.
So Range Rovers, US UK deal to cut beef tariffs to close to zero. US to cut tariffs on UK made cars to 10%. That's pretty much it. So really, like I said, that was algos immediately hearing anything and then just that was it. And now you got that as soon as price speeds up, I said this is the time where you're either going to get the selling or you're going to get the squeeze. Clearly looks like selling at that point, but it's still not going to be a convincing move, right? I don't say that that's going to make it sell off. I just think that that's where you could see price speeds up. If you go back and watch and rewind the stream a little bit, if you come in here later or whatever, or you do anything, you can go and look right at that candle at that 920, go to 921 and then go switch to 922, and you could see the absolute behavior of this level 2. You could watch a level 2, you can even watch the candles, but I'm watching level 2, and once price starts to speed up, that's when you start to get manipulation. That's when you start to get things moving. So just be aware of those things. That's part of building a relationship. So much nonsense. These new phone updates kill me. I like that Microsoft strength. That potentially could have been an entry right there. But like I said, I'm really not trying. We're getting all this data coming in from this announcement. And yeah, it's opportunity. You could put risk on the table and you could take it off and you could put it on. And it's just, I'm looking for a more convincing move. Something that I want to trap people like that. That's a trap, right? Could be. See if we want to accept into the previous day range, fail it, kind of push up. But I still think we're not ready because we haven't heard it from the horse's mouth yet. You haven't had Trump come out and say, hey, this is what we're doing. As soon as he says words, you're going to start to see. Watch the price action come and start to whip and speed up and do all these things. All right. Where's let's see. I'm definitely off here come 11 o'clock. Just there's no need for me to be on here. Past then, I don't really get a lot of executions, but I also have a haircut. Unfortunately, it's time to start getting cleaned up and back ready to go to work. The baby leave is done, so that's why the streaming is going to start to kick in. Like I said, I wanted to do this week to really start to get back into the groove of it while I'm not sleep deprived. Come next week, I will try my best to get on every day. I don't think Monday will be likely just because that'll be my first day after a 3-day weekend of working overnights. So just be mindful of that. It's not like I'm, I just want to build a good rhythm. This isn't great for making money unless you're looking for like a big longer term play. This could be longs building out a position, building it out, building it out, building out. You are getting lower highs. However, it is a wedging type pattern. You are holding below the session VWAP. We did get this 30-minute candle came right into here. Didn't quite make it to that weekly VWAP. So honestly, I do feel like maybe there's a bit more downside left in this before we start to get actually bid up. So that's another reason. We're in a downtrend here from the overnight high all the way. I'm just not ready to put risk on for this session. Like I said, as I mentioned, I have my XFAs. I'm still in building phase. If you're in a phase where you got a bit more breathing room and there's a B setup, like say this is a B setup here, or this is more even closer to an A, but the only thing that's holding us back is this press conference that's going to start at 1 minute, any minute now. It could have started at 9. It's going to potentially start at 9:30. It could even get pushed back, but the constant waiting game for something like that, if I'm on and I'm even right now, I can allow this, Trump saying hello and then the market pump, then you could chase it. Oh, but it could easily come and snap you out, and you're going to get a lot of slippage on those too because there's going to be very thin markets. So that's the reason why it has dropped a letter in setup grade for me. However you grade your setups. I mean, I grade them A plus, A, B, but I don't really have like a set in stone why it is. It's just a feel. This feels like it's going to be the wrong time. I know, after developing a relationship and building this, it's just important to wait. Still, it's 9:30. Still hasn't started. I can see price action kind of moving around. I don't know what's going on here. XRP is just dead. Bitcoin at 96K. Ever since I got this update, my phone has been stupid. I really don't like the constant updates on these things. Okay, Bitcoin's trying to break through 100K. XRP trying to break through 220. I like that wick for the tariff announcement high. However, like I said, with this announcement, Nvidia is starting to get a little bit of a turn at an area of resistance. Microsoft also trying to turn back to the downside. Okay.
Turning negative down about 0.2% like on the
Can we start to get a squeeze behavior in these crypto names? Would be nice. Holding below VWAP for the session. Nothing. This press conference is never going to start. So it's just going to come out whenever, and we'll end up maybe executing whenever that time comes. But this is where we're talking about being aware of headline risk, being aware of what's going on in the markets, especially in this regime of leadership and this current market environment, right? Because if you're not aware of what's going on, you risk being offsides like that very quickly. Once again, I see the algos starting to kick in right here around VWAP. It is breaking out above VWAP on the S&Ps, but still have not quite made it there in the NQ. This is a similar setup to yesterday where I called out the short. There is a chance where I would like to take that short from VWAP on the NQ should we get the same type of behavior that we got yesterday. Hold below VWAP, hold below VWAP. If NQ can get above it, hold it, then fail it. And S&P's relatively strong. Again, there's your little bit of a divergence, right? This VWAP is able to show you, relative strength and weakness between the two. Since we're below that VWAP here and above that VWAP there, there's a chance that it may snap above, grab some of that liquidity. You start to see S&Ps come back down and fail, and then you can look to short through that on the NQ if you see the failure in the MES. Relative strength in the S&Ps, the NQ is not super weak, but it's not as strong, right? We're still below this swing low. We're above that swing low here. Maybe we retest that swing low, and then you start to be paying attention because NVIDIA is getting heavy. Microsoft's starting to find an area where it wants to sell from. This could mean we do get that snap, trap, long, rotate, short. And I didn't take it yesterday, but there is a potential opportunity there for me. But if we're never going to get to any of my levels, and if we're not going to do these things, then I'm not going to be able to take them. Press conference still not there, so. And that VWAP on the NQ is slightly higher than it is on the MNQ, right? And the MES, so there may be a little bit further upside in this MNQ. NVIDIA, I'll show you that. There's your NVIDIA. Pushing down, pushing down, pushing down. It needs to find support there at 116. Microsoft, once again, got to this wick, ran up to it, and then failed it immediately. You're getting a, the higher low, higher low, higher low, but trend line there, break could mean a further downside down into here. Should that break, then will lead to our idea over here kind of playing out. I would have liked this to get over there first, though. You know, same idea as yesterday, right? S&P's gets above relative strength, shows a failure of the VWAP. You could technically fail that, but we haven't caught up yet, right? So does it want to catch up? Like yesterday, we wanted to catch up. Today, it didn't. It ran it and ran down. I wonder if anybody has taken any ideas today. I'm sure plenty of people are trading. Kind of a head and shoulders type idea. And there you go with the NVIDIA getting down to that support level, and Microsoft cracked that little trend and now looking to come right back into support here at 436.50, 436.69, right in that area there. U.S. imposes sanctions on China refinery importing Iranian oil. Nothing else. Just touched that previous day high. There is a buyer there, right? There you can see that. Touch it, bid. Touch it, bid. Touch it, bid. Touch, 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 touch. If it gives up, 20,000 comes. See, like I mentioned, I don't really like when it hangs around the level until I see a manipulation to help me time it. This could lead to heavy momentum traders actually being successful because this buyer eventually just gives up. You know, it keeps refreshing a bid, refreshing a bid, refreshing a bid. When the buyer eventually just gets exhausted, when that limit, you know, just gets breached, then that's when you start to see a heavier momentum. You start to see more of just a big, strong candle to the downside. And that's when you hold and start to continue in stair step, just because this level gets broken. But if we reclaim that level pretty quickly on a failed breakdown, I can see that in the behavior. I can see that in the momentum, and then I can look to rotate it back the other way, especially if Trump starts to talk. Still nothing, right? 9 o'clock, 9:30. Maybe he was talking about 10 o'clock Central Time. Who knows? Who knows? NVIDIA, like that's what I was mentioning. Same thing with that refreshing buyer. There. We got below this previous low. So we failed that. Should this give up, then the next downside, I remember I was talking about was 116. 116 to 117 was the range from after hours, right? That was where I would say if this doesn't hold, then you get some more of this type of behavior. Should it recover that, that's when you get more of a idea where you can get long on the NQ. Microsoft has held this area pretty good. Like this seems pretty solid as far as the support level is concerned. Right here, bounce, 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 bounce. If it cracks it, same deal, down to 435.17. And then that will help kind of really convince me into this should it fail. But I think that buyer's going to give up. Yeah, this looks like it wants to start to break. I want to see what it looks like on the dome. 55. Is there a bigger buyer here somewhere? 17. No. Turn that off. 55 to 50. There's a 17 cons sitting on the bid at 50. Is there anything bigger below? 15, 16. It's stacking there. Not really big. I think they're, like I said, it's still just waiting. It's a waiting game for the Trump man. Nvidia just cracked that 116.63 level, and now it's going to start to hold that. There's that 116 level, 116.63. It gave you a snap there. Could this hold? If I feel like it's a little bit heavy. Should we break down 116.50? Then we flush a bit down. Like I said, down to 116 makes sense because of this, area here. 116.20 would be interesting to watch, which will help our NQ. And then, like I said, Microsoft here again, you're going to be stacked on top of here. If this does give up, then you start to see the lower lows in the indexes. What chart am I on? Microsoft still. There we go. And like you can see, we're just sitting here. I use these major names and their structure locations and their support and resistance, as well as the S&P and the NASDAQ. I use cumulative delta at times. I haven't been using it lately because I don't have it on. I had it on Quant Tower and I liked it, and then I don't like it on TradingView. There's a few things that I add and subtract here and there, but the main player is what I'm showing you every day on these. So, like I said, it's boring when there's nothing going on, but I'm trying to keep myself from executing. There is a break of that level in NVIDIA. We did not break an NQ when it broke. Microsoft is holding relative strength. So if Microsoft keeps relative strength and NVIDIA fails to break, then you may start to see this squeeze, and that is where you'll get an opportunity. But I think that Microsoft's going to give up because NVIDIA is getting heavy. Same as yesterday. If I get a hard flush here down into that 40s, 44, remember I said that's tariff high right here. We're holding above that tariff high. If we could get a snap of this, I would probably try and long it there. But I do think that there's some downside left. Once that buyer gives up, right? I said the buyer is sitting at 50, 55. If that buyer gives up, then you're going to start to see this get heavy quick, and the momentum players will be in. So if they're in the momentum, they want to be out, and they're going to start panicking out if it's wrong. I want to see Microsoft down lower, and I want to see what it does. So if Microsoft can hold 437-ish, and NVIDIA starts to come back off of 116.20, 116.21, then we may rotate back to 117. Microsoft may start to bounce. Then you start to get this reversion back to VWAP again, especially since Donald hasn't started talking yet. Still nothing. I feel like maybe there's not a deal. That was a good wick, but it's also still soon. There's an ASCAT right above. Looks like it just got filled at 66, 64. I like that bounce on NVIDIA. Microsoft still holding up, which is good. That could have been the timing right there. I'm still just sort of standoffish, especially because I think that there's a potential that this deal announcement might be not happening. And if it doesn't, then we get a melt. I think that's what's gonna happen. It looks like they're speaking again this morning, so maybe they haven't maybe he announced the deal in order to force their hand, and they say no go, and now they're trying to force him, and he's going to back down on the idea that could lead to a heavier selling. $9:45 here in Central Time. Nothing doing for me yet. Nvidia came back up, retested 116, pulling back down. I think we can get to 116.20 again and then see if it'll bid. Microsoft getting a bit heavy. There's a push down. See, now this is where I would like to see trapping behavior. If you could get all of these names down here, if Microsoft can get a hard push into that forward 37 level and then start to bounce, and you get Nvidia make a higher low, then maybe our NQ, if we could just get a bit lower, could get us that entry for our long idea as far as timing is concerned. I think, but I don't want to be offsides if in a second they say, okay, this press conference canceled because we don't actually have a deal. That would lead, I think that leads to some aggressive sellers coming in, because this was all based on some of that announcement, pulled back to tariff announcement highs. If there's still tariff lingering deal information out there, the initial sell-off was the first reaction. This could lead to that same type of reaction. If there's a no deal down, if the press conference comes out and all these things that they said on Twitter kind of follow through, then maybe you get the answer. But the fact that we can continue to stay range bound, you could catch from 40 some odd points here on a bounce and then see if you can get on the right side of the press conference coming out, if I can get the manipulation first, right? I want to see if I can get Microsoft a bit lower first. I need to see Microsoft and NVIDIA working together in order to carry this to the upside, right? Seems like Microsoft pushing lower is the main driver for this to get lower, because NVIDIA pushed lower first and it didn't break us down. Now that Microsoft is breaking, you are showing a bit more heaviness, not much. So if you get a bounce in Microsoft and NVIDIA can break back above 116.63, you may get that next rotation to view up. All right, so I think maybe we can do that. Microsoft right there right now. I think I could set this order here, and if it wants to go, then it'll go now. If not, it's not going to go at all. Stop by 2 up over this here, and that is going to go there as well. I'll take a chance on it, on the timing, on the bounce on Microsoft is really what I'm looking for. If I can't get a bounce on Microsoft kind of quick, then I'm going to get out, or I won't get in at all. That's my timing right there. Microsoft at its low, just to see if I can get back to VWAP again before this announcement. But it looks like the breakdown might want to come to play. There we go. That heaviness is coming. Oh, now he's finally talking. There we go. I don't know if I want to be sitting with an order here. I'm not. I'm out. Flatten that. If he's talking right now, I do not want to play. Yeah, why is Fox News not showing? So he's talking, but they're not showing the video. Yeah, no, I like it. If this is a special day, UK's PM Starmer's on the phone.
Trump says tremendous deal for both nations, and just concluded rare earth deal with Ukraine.
I'll get in it. It's okay.
Adding that speaking with Zelensky soon. Trump says reached a great deal with the
Order
UK,
field.
I'm willing to take it.
saying we reached a breakthrough deal for the UK.
Order filled.
Okay, so I'm in on both. taking the chance on it. See if we can get just a little Trump daddy squeeze. If he's talking positive, then we can get some squeeze action on it. I am going to get to even kind of quick if I can get up 1-1. Microsoft bounced from its low. UK is one of our cherished allies. Okay, I'm at 1-1 on the on the. There we go. I'm not trying to get snapped out. Okay. There we go. Nice little squeeze there. Let's see if we can get a squeeze to go. Trump is talking, so I'm in and Trump is talking. There we go. There we go, baby. Let's get it. Okay. Another base hit type day for us, at least. Going candle to candle here on that. I'm out up 387 and up 72 bucks. I just didn't trust that presser. And Microsoft started to sell off. So I could have stayed at even, but if I'm going to take that, I'm going to take it. You can see here, you want to take that base hit all day, every day. I set my stop right there. It could have kept going. It can still keep going, but I don't trust the Trump press news. A lot of times it's going to squeeze and then snap down, so I took that out there. So we are going to lock out another winning day here on the Don't Do Dumb Shit XFA, right? Press conference done, up 387 on that trade. Nice little execution. I could show our chart executions there, right? Entered in here, out there. Sure, if we keep going, we keep going. I'm cool with it. I just do not want to be holding through a Trump press conference. Not something that I'm willing to do. So let's hear what he has to say.
Also, the deal includes plans to bring UK economic security alignment with US.
Bring the United Kingdom into the economic security alignment with the United States. That's the first of its kind. So we have a big economic security blanket. It's very important, and we feel very.
See, that's why you get out of that trade right there.
Truly one of our great allies. A lot of people say our greatest ally. I don't want to insult people by saying that, but I can say it's certainly one of our greatest.
Beautiful trade
They're the first one.
as far as
By the way, we have many.
putting the risk on, taking the chance on an idea, and now let's see what happens with the rest of it. I'm up 72 bucks on the TFDs, which is fine. I'm taking my time with those. That was a good trade execution there with those. Maybe I could have secured 100 bucks on it, but you know, like I said, I was literally willing to give it a little bit of wiggle to get up higher. Should we have squeezed? Obviously, you could see buy the rumor, sell the news type movement here. I want to see that that anchored VWAP, right? We're seeing that come into play. That's what I talked about, probably being where the bounce point is. Microsoft flushed that zone, and Nvidia also pushed lower. So be mindful of those things if you are trading that.
We've eased up, and I would say that the UK certainly eased up, but now we're going to be uneasing both, and we work together. Once again, I want to thank Prime Minister Starmer. He's been terrific for his partnership in this matter. The special relationship.
There we go. We'll listen to Don.
An external and an internal bond between our two countries will soon be stronger than ever before. We really do. We have a great relationship. I want to just say that the representatives of UK have been so professional, and it's been an honor doing business with all of them, and in particular the Prime Minister. And I'd like to introduce him now to say a few words. Mr. Prime Minister, please take it away.
Thank you, Mr. President. Donald, this is a really fantastic, historic day in which we can announce this deal between our two great countries. And I think it's a real tribute to the history that we have of working so closely together. Can I pay tribute, Donald, to your negotiating team as well, particularly Howard and Jameson, who've done an incredible job, a very professional job. and my team as well, two negotiating teams have worked at pace now for a number of weeks to bring in this deal today. Really important deal. This is going to boost trade between and across our countries. It's going to not only protect jobs but create jobs, opening market access. And as you say, Donald, the timing couldn't be more apt because not only was it 80 years ago today.
There was that anchored VWAP tag on the S&Ps, right? So you got the weekly VWAP touched on S&Ps relative strength now in the NQ comparative. Very different than it was before. Interesting, right?
And Donald, I think even down to the hour, because you may or may not know that it was about this time of day, exactly 80 years ago, that Winston Churchill announced victory in Europe, and that led to great celebrations across Europe, across America, but particularly in the United Kingdom. Literally, people going out into the street, putting bunting up, going up to the palace, and so Britain announced this great deal on the same day, 80 years forward, almost at the same hour, and as we were 80 years ago, with the UK and the US standing side by side, I think is incredibly important and makes this truly historic. That close relationship has endured over those 80 years. As you know, Donald, when it comes to defence and security and intelligence sharing, of course, there are no two countries that are closer than our two countries. And now we take this into
Microsoft trying to come back up into that 437. So if it reclaims it and starts to push up higher, that's when this is where I say a short trap comes into play, right? You get people panicking into this move where they think that they're going to get some momentum play. You get right into that anchored VWAP. I marked it off as a line, but it's an anchored VWAP from the week. Support level in the S&Ps. You know, you got that key 20,000 level in the NQs. Maybe we get that rotation now higher. If Microsoft can reclaim that 436, if NVIDIA can hold this 116.22, this is where you start to get bigger participants scooping up all those orders, and then you might get that rotation higher. Unless, of course, like I said, we want to rotate back down to that point of control yesterday. I don't think that this announcement is going to move markets in any significant way, as far as nobody's surprised that the U.S. and the U.K. would be the deal makers, right? And now they're just talking about how it's on the anniversary of ending World War II and all that fun stuff. So.
deal on trade and the economy. I want to thank you for your leadership on that, Donald.
We caught our small little piece of the pie,
The way in which you're
top ticked it, and
this absolutely
now it's rotating down. So I took a chance on it. If it wanted to do this in the opposite direction, I do believe that this could still play that way again, and I may take that shot again on it. But currently, until this guy stops talking, we should probably avoid it. Select the setup. We're going to go mean reversion long. It's an overnight high, previous day high bounce. It is sort of a mean reversion, but it's a previous day high bounce because you're not coming from the lows, right? It's more of it's a little bit off on the way the momentum plays.
You know, I don't know if the media knows, but the U.S. and U.K. have been working for years to try and make a deal, and it never quite got there.
Yeah.
It did with this prime minister, so I want to just
Yeah,
congratulate you.
well, with this president, this prime minister, we've managed to achieve what many people have tried to achieve for many years, and I'm really pleased, and it feels completely historic and on a special 80-year anniversary as well. So, Donald, thank you so much. It's really good to have got this deal over the line. Tribute to both teams, tribute to our countries, and tribute to your leadership.
Well, it really is a great thing, and you go do your press conference, and I'll see you soon, maybe speak to you later. But thank you very much, an incredible thing. I can't tell you that for so many years, even as I said, everybody talked and talked and talked about a deal. It just seemed like a natural deal, but it was not done, but now it was done with us, so I feel very proud to have been a part of it. Kieran, thank you very much.
April labour market in England.
Thanks, Donald, and we'll speak again soon.
Very good. So long. Bye.
All right, Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister are done talking. Let's see if there's a press conference a little bit currently. Let's see what they have to say.
The UK to sell 16 million
opening up the country that we really didn't have the kind of access to that I would have thought. I was surprised. I think it's why the deal never got done before. It was, they've been working on this deal for 20. We got it done, and we got it done. Really, it's gonna be great for both countries. So, Sarah, if you could go, and then, if somebody else, you may have, your picture, whoever you want, would like to do it. I have a feeling you're gonna do it, right? So, you guys go ahead, and then we'll take questions right after that. But I think you'll get a pretty good understanding of how big it is. It's a very large deal, very big. Howard, go ahead.
So the UK is the 6th largest economy in the world and the 4th largest that we export to, right? So it's a huge market, a top 10 market. If you remember Liberation Day, they were at 10% because we have balanced trade with the UK, right? They say they have a surplus, but of course that counts gold bullion, which is, so let's just call it balanced trade. So how do you open up a market in balanced trade? People think it's impossible. They've always thought it was impossible until President Trump came on the scene and changed the way things work. So here's what we've got.
All right, now he's going to start talking details. Market's getting thin, so be careful if you're going to start to. I can see the level 2s. I'm just going to show you really quick. Level 2s are starting to get thin on that dome, so just be cautious. Understand, as he starts talking about details, that's going to get you into some trouble if you are not careful, okay?
Because they've never done it before, and we still have our 10% tariff on, which will produce $6 billion of revenue for the United States. So the idea was, how do they keep their jobs, protect their economy, and do the best for their people while opening the market for us? And the ways they studied it, their team was exceptional, and they tried to figure out the markets that they're importing from other people and try to send them over to America. So why were they always favoring others and not us? And what they've done is they've found ways to do that so that we have new access, right? But the UK workers are protected, and that was the balance. So we did a deal with them in automobiles, and you know, if you're not building here, we charge you a 25% tariff. But the president, and by the way, I want to make this clear, while Jameson and I worked hard, this was the president's deal. And people think, oh, that's not the way it works. If you got to sit next to him, I have the best deal maker to my left. And if you don't think that we take advantage of him calling the prime minister, getting that deal done, you don't understand who's the president of the United States. So he's the closer. He gets deals done that we could never get done because he understands business, he understands deals, and that's why we're here today. So he agreed they could send 100,000 cars into America and only pay a 10% tariff. And that protects their car industry. And remember, we do 16 million cars a year. So this is only like 0.6%. But for the UK auto people, this is tens of thousands of jobs that the president agreed that he would protect for them. So he made that deal, right? Then steel and aluminum, right? Their steel business has been destroyed like everybody else has been destroyed by people dumping steel into their markets. And British Steel had announced it was closing down. So the British government, as part of this deal, nationalized British Steel, and they're going to match the kinds of models we do. They'll put tariffs on, they'll put quotas on. They want to do it with America so they can be part of the resurgence of steel and aluminum in America, and that saves them, again, thousands and thousands of jobs. So if you go step by step, aero and commercial planes, they sell Rolls-Royce engines to Boeing. We've agreed to let Rolls-Royce engines and those kind of plane parts to come over tariff-free. And what you're going to hear today is there's going to be an announcement.
This is a good deal. Absolutely.
$10 billion worth of Boeing planes later today, but I'm going to let the name of the airline announce it because that's theirs to do. But part of it was always
It's definitely a good
and to do it
good deal.
and you can
I'm going to let that run a little bit. I'm not going to execute on this. I think that is a really good opportunity here with that test of the anchored VWAP from the week. We never quite got there, but 20,000 is a nice round number, so I am going to potentially look at previous day long again. However, I'm locked out on Top Step. This is my I'm building my buffer in my TFD, and I'm just taking base hit after base hit. I'm not going to be upset if that's what I get out of today. So just give me 2 minutes.
10%, and the market for America is better. And this is a perfect example why Donald Trump produced Liberation Day. People don't understand he gets things done in a matter of time. This would have taken Jameson and I 3 years, maybe. And instead, we got it done in 45 days, certainly because we worked for Donald Trump. So, Jameson, my partner in all this, maybe Jameson, you'd like to talk a little, and then we'll turn it over to you guys.
Sure, happy to do that. Everyone, great remarks. I just have to echo the President and Prime Minister. We talked about VE Day. This is something we've been waiting for decades, and there's no more appropriate dates to do this. And when we step back and we look back,
All right, I'm back. Got the.
better appreciate the significance, I think.
There is some war going on in Pakistan and India, so just also something to be aware of.
Act like this, and the ambassador, he knows more about trade than a lot of us here based on his background.
I think that's.
Stay on this deal
I mean, everything that I've heard so far
is that it is time to change the way we
seems like this is a solid deal. I mean, for me, market-wise, you know, keeping keeping this here. I think there is going to be some. I bet you Boeing is probably running on this, right? BA. Yeah, look at that. I mean, come on, you can't beat that. Look, when you get you're talking deals. There's opportunities in these press conferences. There's opportunities in repatriatizing these productions, right? So if you start to say, okay, now Boeing crushing it today because of that. Right? All you gotta do is start looking at the industries, right? And then understanding, you know, you might get some down movement in U.S. steel because of that, but I doubt it. What's X? Gas? Steel. There we go. Steel, I mean, nothing crazy, but I thought I was right. Sometimes I remember my tickers. Let's get Microsoft back above here, right? That's that trap, higher low. Now I could imagine that this rotates back higher the rest of the day. Should NVIDIA want to do the same and reclaim VWAP, then our entry here could be good. I think maybe I'd try a second shot at it. But I want to see, you know, because you're so close to VWAP here on S&Ps, I almost would rather see this get up over here first and then try and take that entry.
And that we would be first, and you have delivered that. You know, you've been true to your word. So thank you very much indeed for that. For us, it's not the end. It's the end just of the beginning. I mean, there is yet more we can do in reducing tariffs and trade barriers so as to open up our markets to each other, even more than we are agreeing to do today. But it also provides us with the platform, the springboard, to do what I think will be even more valuable for both our countries in the future, and that's creating a technology partnership between the United States and the United Kingdom, so that we can harness science and technology in order to create future industries and future jobs. And to do that together in the way we work so closely already in the national security and defense area, we can just take that to yet further areas of science, enterprise and endeavour. So we're looking forward to doing that in the coming months. You've launched extremely well today. Just, in my view, the Prime Minister said, just shows what two countries can trust each other, who are confident in each other and familiar with each other, can do not just for ourselves, but for those, the rest of the world, who need to benefit from bigger and better international trade.
Still just having the stream, the Q&A. That's an, you know, I was willing to take this shot at it based purely on the setup presented itself. Microsoft seemed like it wanted to give us a little bit of a bounce. You had a little bit of strength, and then coming into the press conference, Trump started to speak on a positive note. He started to get that little bit of a squeeze. I'm willing to take that and trail out tight quick because I know something like this is bound to happen, right, in this kind of market. Now, right now, these Q&As and the unplanned talk seems like it'll be more market moving. There's a chance that we do get trapped into a long, trapped into a short, right? Like until he's done talking, it's a thin. I can see breaks in the level twos even behind this video, right? So just be careful with that. I wouldn't want to totally get involved. If I had like a big wide stop, if I'm risking, like I said, if I'm willing to risk a bit more, then we're gonna take that chance to risk to like 20,000 and then run it. I'm not willing to risk to 20,000 currently on a headline-driven market when Trump's doing his press conference, right? It's a great first deal. There's still plenty of certainty in the markets for these people and market participants, right? Nvidia gapped up on that AI chip news yesterday, but it's giving it a back because we really don't have certainty on it, right? That was more of like a rumor, or they're pulling back but they may push it back up. So, just like I said, there's not certainty. This is still a difficult trade here because you are in that downtrend. You're at a congestion area, and S&P's is holding below that previous high. Do we want to get back to that anchor VWAP? Get back to that point of control from yesterday? Are we going to start hunting points of control? I believe points of control are very important. Obviously, it's the highest volume area in a standard deviation of the day. So, just understand that. Be mindful of it.
Better than anybody in the world, and it's just something that it's a great thing that it came together. It's so nice because we have many countries that like here, and many countries are very unhappy that we happen to use this one. To be honest with you, but for a long time, our oldest ally, just about. There's a couple of people playing that too. Let's put it right at the top. I think it's going to be something very special for UK and especially for the United States. Well, very close. We have numerous personalities going back. This is fifth press conference. You've got numerous, and Scott, who's right over here, who's fantastic, by the way. You were great on television this morning. I watched you. You gave them a little lesson in the world and economics. But Scott's going to be going to Switzerland, meeting with China, and they very much want to make a deal. We can all play games. Who made the first call? Who didn't make it? Doesn't matter. Only matters what happens in that room. But I will tell you that China very much wants to make a deal. We'll see how that works out. Every country throughout the last 40, 50 years has literally ripped off the United States on trade, on military, on protection, on all the different things. And we are now making fair deals. And in this case,
So there we go. Right now, you're starting to get that acceptance outside of yesterday's price action. Right, previous day high, starting to try and accept out of yesterday's price action. This is where the seller stepped in before. If you get through this seller now, this is where you starting to see price squeeze up into VWAP, and then you have to see what happens at VWAP. These are defensible areas for price to want to continue to kind of just stay trapped, especially while Trump is talking on a press conference type. He's going to throw something off the wall, and then you could just get this same type of move right back down, or you can get the same move to the high side. So if you're not aware of headline risk, if you're not aware of how price moves on these algos, it's really word based. So if the algo hears a specific word, if it hears a specific phrase or something like that, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad or not. It's just going to trigger the sell or trigger the buy, and that's going to snap things around and move it around. So I'm trying to show you the discipline of being able to sit on your hands on that, especially the press conference side.
Putting
take what they want. We have plenty of it. We have every type. We have every
UK government says
classification
work
you can
will
have.
continue on the
As
remaining
you know, Bobby
sectors such
Kennedy
as
is
pharmaceuticals
doing a tremendous
and
job.
remain
And he's,
reciprocal tariffs.
I hear the baby cooing in the background. So if you hear babies, if you hear kids, if you hear yelling and crying
I think we're heading
on top of the Trump man, then
and but we have that also. So we have we're a big country. We have a lot of
Microsoft. There's your.
countries, so it'll be great.
This is what I wanted to see out of Microsoft to get our long idea going. If you're looking for something more convincing, you have NVIDIA as well holding up over that key structure level there. But like I said, 117 to 116 from that yesterday's post-market after-hours session could get trapped in there from during this talk. So we're also looking at this.
The really important part of this deal isn't just the ethanol reducing tariffs from 19 to 0, which for our row croppers is a huge deal, but also for
S&P is now trying to hold above VWAP. NQ now trying to get there. Should you start to get and accept and hold, then maybe the break of VWAP is where you go. But you're now over that sell spot from that initial press conference sell. You know, is this now another reason for the seller to step in? Who knows what they say during this entire press conference? I'm going to be right back. Just make sure everything is clean in the other room, and I'll be quick. I'm not going to execute probably another trade on this account, so just give me a second.
Everything in the world, they say that our agriculture is, second to none. You understand? And it'll be a great asset. People are going to be able to have options, choice, and they'll have more of it. And that usually means lower prices. How about we'll do you and then you go ahead.
Trump says we intend to make a deal with Europe. We intend to make a deal with the EU.
Well, we intend to make a deal with Europe. We have found that the European Union treated us extremely unfairly, and very
Good
difficult,
to see some movement.
and hurt themselves in doing so. And they very much want to make a deal. We'll be dealing with them. We are dealing with them currently, so that'll cover pretty much the rest of it. But this was separate because of Brexit in particular. This was a separate deal. It always seems so natural. I mean, when the media would say that this seemed to be like, why did this happen 25 years? Why didn't it happen a long time ago? And it was always amazing to me. Somebody would say, hey, we got to make a deal. We have to make a deal. But this deal just fell into place. The Prime Minister did a fantastic job. His representatives were total professionals. And we got along well.
All right, haven't missed much.
I think one of the reasons it did is because
The TFD here, like I said, we're up $72. You know, could I have taken a little bit of a heavier position? Yes, but I could also have lost. And I'm just going to stick to that 2 on this until then.
so nicely. And I'm honored that it was the first deal.
And I'm not going to execute until they're done speaking. And who knows what happens after that, right? You know, we have that opportunity to squeeze, but also you have another opportunity for another sell side move.
Well, we're gonna have a discussion on that separately, and as you know, we're putting tariffs on that particular film, you say, the movie makers, and we're going to be doing some tariffs to get them, because a lot of them have left this country. They all live here, the money comes from here, everything comes from here, but they make them in other countries. So we're gonna do something to bring them back, maybe to a large extent, but, James Bond has nothing to worry about that, I can tell you. James Bond. And Sean Connery was a friend of mine. Sean Connery was responsible for my getting zoning in Aberdeen. He said, let the bloody bloke build his golf courses. I was like 4 years into the process and it was impossible in Aberdeen. And I don't know, he just stood up one day and he said that. As soon as he said that, I got the approvals in about 2 minutes. He was a great guy, Sean Connery. And say it? Yeah, I will be. We have a lot of investments over there. We have Turnberry, Aberdeen. We have, as you know, in Dubeg in Ireland, right on the ocean. They're all on the ocean. I only have interest in they're on the ocean. And we have good investments over there. Beautiful. Yes.
right, so now we got some whippy action going on.
Relationship. You know, I always got along very well with President Xi.
Talking about China, so that's why.
Greatly
So you could clearly see how China Talk initiated the algo.
we had the relationship was hurt with a lot of people.
He said China, good relationship. Like these little words that trigger these algos, you can't beat that. They're HFTs. There's people out there much smarter than you with much more equipment, that have much more money, that can just move this market around. So you have to be understanding of when they're going to use that information to their advantage, how these algos work, and understand kind of a little bit of just that manipulative behavior that's going to occur around specific words at specific times during press conferences, during these things. You could get on the right side of it. Sure, I could have got on the right side of this, but also like, where's your risk? Where are you managing? Obviously, if you're going to play a squeeze through VWAP, maybe your stop is down here, and then you just hope that the algo is going to pump it. But also at the same time, a lot of times all they're doing is grabbing little orders, couple ticks here, couple ticks there, and they're making money on that. Like, you wouldn't believe. And then they're going to front run orders and all that fun stuff. So just understand that that's a possibility. But my real thought is, when you know that there's going to be a press conference and you don't have an A+ set up, then maybe just don't take it. That's my one piece of advice for today. And also just kind of keeping myself accountable to it, right? I'm just talking it to you or to whoever and saying it out loud, but for realistically, I'm telling myself that this is where I want to be practicing good discipline, good behavior, understanding that, okay, now's the time you probably don't want to be in. You don't want to be manipulated. You're not going to get true, clean, actual price action. Liquidity is thin. You're starting to see gaps in the prices. The level 2s aren't showing healthy behavior currently. So why would I act on that?
We're just going to say, because we understand the countries, we understand what they want, where we're just going to make the deal. In other words, we don't need the country involvement because we've already had it. And we'll say this particular country, which had big surpluses, let's say, we had therefore deficits, that this particular country is going to pay a 25% tariff or 30% or 50% or 10% or whatever it may be. This was, I think we should explain it. One of the things we did here that we rarely do is on cars, we took it from 25 to 10 on Rolls Royce because Rolls Royce is not going to be built here.
The entry here
We didn't even ask them to do that.
obviously looks nice, right? Same entry, 58, right? You could have entered there, took little to no heat on it, and it goes. And that was based on Microsoft and based on NVIDIA and based on the press conference kind of winding down, but also the scheduled part winding down. Now it's the press conference. This type of behavior, this trap, is what I talk about for this type of nice long to work out. The only reason I didn't take this second shot at it is because it is a press conference and I don't trust exactly what's going to happen. I don't trust the algos. I don't want to be manipulated in and out. So better to sit on my hands personally. Yes, it worked. I can now notate that my strategy is still valid. It still works. There's good opportunities to be making money. However, there's also a reason why I wouldn't be in and practicing good behavior of not taking that into a press conference. I consider that an A+ trade in my book, right? That's a good trade for me. I didn't have to do anything to not lose money. Right, I'm already up 387 on this account. I'm already up, a small amount on the futures desk, but the point isn't the dollar amount. It's the discipline and the behavior behind it that eventually will lead to bigger profits and longer term success and keeping accounts and building beyond today, right? Yes, this is a great opportunity. Yes, we failed to accept into yesterday's range, so therefore we should possibly create a new range and a new area of interest up and through maybe the overnight high even. But I'm not looking to do that.
Once we started, when you think of that, close to $10 trillion of investment, you've had years where the United States wouldn't do that.
He's still talking, right? So this is stay out mode.
Do anywhere near $1 trillion. We did $10 trillion in 2 months. So it's amazing what's happening. We're getting calls from, and that has to do with chips, has to do with cars. We we used to make chips, we had Intel, and we used to make chips, we had a monopoly on chips, and everything was made here. And now,
Before
over a period of years, because of presidents that didn't know what.
of late, I probably would have taken that because of greed and whatever, and feeling like I needed to make more on today. Like, this is clearly a really nice move. Very unlikely to get stopped out in any area of this. Even if you went candle to candle, you wouldn't have got stopped out anywhere, even up into VWAP. So still would have been actively in this position had you taken it down here. But like I said, I'm not in that business of
Too bad, but now they're coming back.
practicing bad behaviors to potentially make money on a trade. That isn't
Back, as you know, we have the biggest chip makers.
ideal, because next time it'll get me in trouble, right? Next time if I take this and it worked and it just snaps me out and I take a oversized loss because there's slippage and there's big gaps in the order flow, then that's not good trade management. That's not good behavior, right? And here is that anchored VWAP working once again, right?
Substantive, yes.
This is the weekly
I think people like to say.
anchored VWAP.
Having a meeting to meet. Well, we're meeting, so what are we gonna do? Talk about meeting again? I think it's gonna be substantive. I think we can say that, right, Scott? Very substantive. Now, China wants to do something, and they have to at this point. You know, essentially, they made $1 trillion a year, and now they have absolutely
There you go.
no business.
A little bit of
Tariffs, they have no business.
relevance.
And they want to have business, and we want them to have business. We want them to do well. We want them to do very well. So I think it's going to be very substantive.
Alrighty. Like I said, I normally will stream till about 11 o'clock. Today, I'm not going to take any more trades. I'm going to listen to the rest of this.
We lose. That means we lose less money. You know, when I see that, that means we lose less money.
Yeah, he's going to keep talking. It'll probably be till about 11 o'clock. Like I said, I'm going to go get a haircut. I'm going to go do some stuff to get prepared for the next week and moving on to getting things ready. That trade idea right there was pretty nice if you're understanding the dynamics behind some of these price movements, right? Tariff announcement high. This was a good deal. Now, you take off some of the pressures of, what's going to happen here? Are these deals going to be made? All this stuff. You can see that they want to now push this price higher. They want to get up into, maybe into this all-time high anchored VWAP area. Maybe not necessarily today. It could, but this is good. I mean, this is good news for markets. Yesterday's Fed decision and rhetoric saying that it's going to be difficult for them to regulate markets because of tariffs and whatnot, and this is the first step in the right direction as far as alleviating that. So we'll see what happens with everything.
Great thing for China, and that's going to be one of the things we'll be discussing, like we discussed with UK. Yeah, please.
Fitch says, I think 10% baseline is set. Again, I think 10% baseline.
Well, I think that's set because that has to do with a lot of different things, including past. There are a lot of.
You can look at that algo whip.
This is very
You see that?
inclusive. We included everything,
Wild.
and that's pretty well set. Yeah, please. No, that's a low number. They made a good deal. Some will be much higher because they have massive trade surpluses, and in many cases they didn't treat us right. One thing with UK, they had somewhat closed, not like in China as an example, but they always treated us with great respect. They treated us with
The
great
don't
respect.
do dumb shit mug working out once again today. I'm going to lock out because I don't want to take anything else on this. This is me just practicing good behaviors. Could we get through the overnight high, get a nice setup, get a failure? Absolutely. But it's going to be pretty much after the fact of me wanting to be here at the desk and being fully attentive to my trading, right?
also protect their workers, grow our markets, and help our
This is
workers.
a business religion. You know, business is sort of a semi-good religion, but not nearly as important. I don't want to go this up. All right, in the back.
Trump says we will ask China for help when Ukraine, Russia do.
All right, yeah. That's the.
I think it's a natural thing to ask. Sure. I don't know. I think we're making good progress. Fighting is a little bit different than.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut the stream now. Like I said, I locked out for the day. I'm not gonna be executing more trades. All I'm gonna be doing is watching the press conference, kind of chatting around here in some of the world of socials and discords, and trying to help out as best I can on. And then I'm just gonna sit on my hands, right? Because I made my trade that I wanted to make here. I didn't get the movement that I want. You know, the squeezing type behavior. This is exactly the setup that I want to see. This is my A plus. You know, we got into that anchored VWAP. We got to 20,000. We made a higher low. We came, reclaimed our previous day high. We failed to accept into yesterday's range, and we rotated back up. Should I have gotten this any other day, I would have taken this. But since it's a press conference, and there's tariff talk and algos and thin markets, I'm not going to execute here, right? Because it's just not worth it to me to risk any money in an environment that's more of a coin flip, even though it's my A plus setup. So
And I think we have a good chance.
that's it. So until I'm going to try to stream tomorrow one last time, maybe. And then Monday, I'm not going to be on. And then I'm going to try and get back on the stream again Tuesday. So if you do want to get involved, I'm just going to keep doing it to keep myself accountable at anything. If you feel like joining in the conversation, let me know. Otherwise, until then, I'll talk to you later.